that's part of that atavistic memory. You're working that out. Nicholas was very zen in his teaching. He taught more by doing than by saying. The only thing he ever said to me was that he watched me working one morning and he said, you know, Scott, my God, you dig so much into the rock. You dig and you dig and you dig. Why are you digging so much into the rock? And when you look at a lot of shoulder work, I mean, they're very, it's an elegance of gesture, you know, very simple. The lines are very intentional. And that was a way that many of the local artists who would come see me working with him, and they would look at my work, and I would say, you know what, it's all about the result of your experience, your cultural experience. You know, I'm working things out through this stone. I'm working it out. I'm working it out. That beating, that driving, that digging, you know, it's that looking. They didn't have to look. They didn't have to look. Their society was around them. It represented them everywhere. They cut on their TV. It's a Zimbabwean person sitting there. He's showing just like me. I don't have that same experience. We're still in constant search. Still in constant search.
That's a perfect segue to get into how do you change up from sculpting to painting.
That's it. We got some paintings here.
Yeah.
There's one there.
This is another one here.
Yeah, and here's a couple in the room back here.
You know, like working through the different mediums, and I do also, in the book, I publish some of my photography alongside with my sculpture, but I also paint oil and acrylic, and I do mixed media. But the paintings really are ways of opening up my hand so that I can approach the sculpture. They kind of relax my mind enough. They give me some of the shapes that I may want to experiment with. They just really are, they just open that door up. Another way of giving me another tool at attacking the story. And so that's what those paintings do. They also have their own concepts. This piece in particular was done for my grandfather. He had just recently passed. And I was thinking about him going through the pearly gates or whatever is there. And so you see, you know, you see this branching out, this explosion, this movement. I often talk about dealing with like whether or not to employ classical African technique or classical African figurative ways and means that you would see in their sculpture. And that's really what that's about. They really are sketches. They really are sketches. Every once in a while, I use them to make a social statement. I mean, if we go. Yeah. Right, but if there's a painting actually in the second room on the wall, and it's more of it has a social political content in it. And I'll let you guys relax, but if anybody wants to know, I'll take you back there and I'll talk about it.
What's the name of that one that you're talking about?
The Coronation. It's
You can give a brief of it. Start with the chicken feet.
Right, oh, the chicken feet, right.
Sounds like food.
Well, you know what it is in a way. It's fine. You know what? Why not be a conjurer? You know, I can conjure too. You know,
Is there chicken feet in it? Yeah.
yeah, we know that has a symbolic meaning in our culture. And then there's the eagle. I look at biblical metaphor when they talk about end times. Revelation was the first book I read back and forth in the Bible. It was the only one that kind of gave me that tickle, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. And so when it talks about the powers, that piece also was done during the same time period of with the Trade Center, that whole apocalyptic thing going on. And so you see the eagle, which represents the United States. And then you see this other entity, us, we, them, on the other side. And they battle. And there's blood involved. And also at that time, my wife's Catholic. And we were talking about raising children. And so we were battling, you know, like, I don't know if I want my child to be around that, you know. And you just kind of, you know, it's about working it out as a family. How you want to introduce your child to morals, right? But at that time, I was reading a group of documents called the Asientos. And the Asientos were decrees by the Catholic popes. And one of them was about 144,000 slaves that would be brought from Africa, and how much the Catholic Church would make off each head. And I was just like, I just don't want my son. I don't want my son. You know, because, you know, you got this heightened sense of what's going on in the spiritual world. If I call on Harriet Tubman's name, God knows I believe that she's watching over that work. She is in that work, you know? And so just as much, you know, if you're not conscious about what you introduce into your family, into your home, into your child's life, then I think you're being neglectful. And so part of that, working out those pieces, was to kind of talk to my better half, my wife, say, this is why I don't believe that he should be a part of this environment. And so there's Catholic, Christian I can read in that piece. And it's also, again, I like to refer back to that, because you have your black male angst and anger, and a lot of times it's done in a very non-productive way, but you still have to address it. And so for me, it's being, I'm a male, and part of me wants to attack, part of me wants to fight, part of me is a warrior, and so I have to deal with that part, and that's the way I do it. The painting allows me to do that a lot more than the sculpture. The sculpture is just, you know, it's hard to create anger and despise and all those deep things that we just don't understand in something that's so elegant and so beautiful. And so if you don't have an outlet for that, you know, for me, the painting becomes an outlet. I can address all the dirty, you know, when I make a painting like that, it takes me to a very dark place. And it spirals, it's like jumping in a well. And I decide to make the conscious effort, I'm gonna dive in this well, but I gotta try to find my way back out. And I know people who don't find their way back out. But you can't not jump because you don't. You know what I mean? You still gotta jump.
I think my sense of getting ready to wind up, so I'll make this brief, but I think it's very interesting that you lost your train of thought the whole time since I've been here anyway. You lost your train of thought when you were talking about that time you went to Africa and it was very transformative and you were building this church, but you said the spirits were very unsettled there. And I think that's when you lost your train of thought, when you were getting ready to talk about those ancestral energies that were around there.
Bring it home, man.
It might be that they don't want you to talk about it, I don't know, but you keep going back to this ancestral thing, so, and that thing you said just now, if I call on Harriet Tubman, I believe that she is watching over the work and is in fact in some ways in the work, is what you said. So do you think the fact that you lost your train of thought then has something to do with this whole ancestral piece? And how do you, it's clear how do you work with your ancestors, and how do you know when they are manifest in action on this side of the veil?
You know what? One of the reasons that I lost my train of thought with that is because I didn't know how to communicate some of the things that I was exposed to. One of the things, I can get a little bit deeper because maybe I know you just a little bit better, all of you. I was taken to a room, it was a carriage house right on the school. And the headmaster told me that this is where the missionaries would bring the boys in and they were sodomized. And one of the things that they did also too, they would do the whole Johnny Appleseed thing, where they would put an apple on the child's head and they would shoot the apple off. And he showed me the pock marks along the wall that was still there from 120 years ago, of these pock marks, you know. And it was, the battle between Bulawayo is called the place of kill, the place of killing. It was there in that place that when the colonists came in, they took all the cattle from the Indabelli people and they slaughtered them on the hill. And very much like any pastoral people, your cattle is everything. It was where Chief Lobangula dealt with Pennsylvania industrialist, what is his name? Cecil Rhodes.
Cecil Rhodes, yeah.
All of that happened within about a 20-mile ratio from where I was. So it was there was a lot of issues going on there. And you're right, sometimes those things may hold your tongue. And sometimes you spend so much time imagining them and reimagining them. It's a place that I remembered when children were sick at the school, they would put them out on cots under the sun. And people would get malaria. I got malaria while I was there. And that was one of the ways to deal with malaria. So you would often come by and you would see these children under the sun. And the malaria has also a psychological thing that goes on. And you would see them kind of toiling and being torn under the sun. The church was a grim place. You had all these 18th century pictures of these past, they were Scottish missionaries, but they just looked so mean. I went there on Sunday morning, they still had church there. And then I listened to them saying, our hymns, the way we sing them, not Christian hymns, our hymns, the way we sing them, in their language. Just a different place, just a different place. As far as my ancestors, the ones that I lock onto are the ones that I knew more than anything. They're the ones that I knew. My great-grandmother Edwina, who I did a piece for, my grandfather. I really when I think about those people, because I knew them and I knew what their want was and desire for me in my life was, I hooked up with them. As far as even going back to the continent, I don't know where they came from, so I kind of take the liberalness of just kind of saying they all are, and gives you kind of a sense of freedom, to be able to kind of access each tradition and not feeling like you're stepping on any toes, because nobody really knows. So, when I see Makande work, I love that. I can see the Tuaregs, like what they do with their jewelry. I'll snatch that. It goes on, it goes on. One of a group of people that I have always enjoyed is, we mentioned them, this Salamanca and Njuka people, the Maroon communities in Suriname and Guyana. My God, what they do, oh my God, like the way that they carve the wood, they have a technique they call wood within wood, and just that wood within wood, you know what I mean? Like they have just a different connection, and in a way, no figurative aspects into their work at all. It's mostly decorative and utilitarian, but the way they utilize it, the strength and power in their statement, just amazing. Because they're a polyglot of African cultures. And none of this could have happened, it could not have happened in Africa. It had to happen here. It had to happen here.
What does the M stand for?
You know what? That is a kind of a throwback. I don't know, ministers in the church often use the abbreviation, not to say Reverend TD Chicks. You know what I'm saying? I'll call it. But for me, that was what that person is. Sometimes you look at yourself, you had preaching qualities. And so, I incorporated that into my name.
And also the photography work of whoever's documenting your photography work is outstanding. The way that they're capturing.
That's all my work. I shoot my own work.
You do an excellent job.
Thank
because
you.
shooting three-dimensional work is very complex
It's
and
very
very
hard.
difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And I can see when you talk about the shadows and sculpting light, which is what photography is.
Yeah.
You do it masterfully.
You know what happened? I read a book by Brancusi, and it's well documented. Brancusi had an intimate relationship with photography. And oftentimes I think what led to the success of his career was that he was able to document it in the way in which he saw it while he was carving. And so that kind of took him over. And one, it was out of necessity. I got tired of paying people to photograph my work. And it became my entree into photography, was photographing what I do. And it kind of branched from there into, photographing other other things. But through the camera, I can really deliver you to where I want. I can create that space. I can put that shadow right on the line.
Absolutely shows.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, one quick question. Have you ever done any sculpture that was like 360 degree around and back?
Yeah, I have. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I haven't done it in a while. Every once in a while, I'll take a piece and give it back. If I really feel like I haven't said enough or I haven't told the story enough. I think I did that more in my youth. And when I was in the youth of my career, I stopped doing it, I think, because, again, it was about allowing the natural part of the stone to shine. And really realizing like how much it really adds to it, more so than me being running off at the mouth or at the chisel. Running off at the chisel. How about that? How about that? You know?
Too deep, huh?
Yeah. There's certainly pieces that I've carved the whole thing around, much like when you see, have you seen some of the Makande work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you know, like they carve every inch of that wood. And so the problem that I came to that is that oftentimes there has to be a link between each side. There has to be a connection there. And sometimes it's not always possible to make that connection, whether it be because of space or because the idea is already enough. And so I think probably for every artist is learning when to say when is enough said, you guys. Thank you so much for your incredible questions.
Thank you all for coming. There's a few books left if you want to purchase one of Scott's books.
DC.